Members, it's the appointed time. We have a quorum. Welcome to the meeting of the panel on information technology and broadcasting. Item 1 on the agenda. Information paper issued since the last meeting. Since the last meeting, the Secretariat has issued one information paper. Mr. Holden CHOW wrote to this panel, I have directed the Secretariat to ask the government for a written reply. If we're all good, let's move on to item 2 on the agenda. That's Capital Works Reserve Fund Head 710, Computerization Subhead A007GX Block Allocation, New Administrative Computer Systems 2025-26 Estimates of Expenditure. We invite the officials to join us. Members who would like to speak, please press the Request to Speak button now. Joining us are the Undersecretary for Innovation, Technology and Industry, that's Ms. Lilian Cheung, and also the Commissioner for Digital Policy from the Digital Policy Office, Mr. Tony Wong, and his colleague, Ms. Jenny Tam, the Assistant Commissioner of the DPO. We first invite the Undersecretary to walk us through the paper. Thank you, Madam Chair. Today, I'm joined by my colleagues from the DPO. We are here to brief members on the Capital Works Reserve Fund Head 710 Computerization Subhead A007GX Block Allocation. That's the New Administrative Computer Systems 2025-26 Estimates of Expenditure. So this head covers the expenses for the computerization and related studies for government departments. In 2025-26, we propose a total funding of $2.52 billion, covering 1,125 projects. This budget will cover projects approved or to be approved for starting in 2024-25, that's 794, and also projects proposed for commencement in 2025-26, that's 331 new projects. And that amount covers the cash flow requirements of these projects. Now, for projects already approved for commencement in 2025-25 or to be commenced, these existing projects make up 80% of the cash flow requirements. For the 331 new projects, they will make up 20%. That's the remaining 20% of the cash flow requirements. For the 2025-26 financial year, we will see computerization projects that come in a huge variety. They include measures to speed up the development of a digital government. Now, there were a number of measures that were announced. There were also measures under the heading of Single Portal Access for Government Services. By the end of 2025, we want to have all government services delivered on digital platforms. For most projects to start, they will be completed, either be completed in 2025 or 26 or reach an advanced stage in that year. That's why we have such a high cash flow requirement for that year. You have this backload situation. Now, for the 331 new projects, they will focus on new digital government services, offering greater ease for people and businesses. Those measures will also have to do with cybersecurity. That makes the support from members all the more important. With the funding, bureaus and departments will be able to leverage information technology to speed up the development of digital government services. This will lead to greater efficiency and better quality of services. Departments will also use the funding to refresh their systems. They will make use of cloud computing, big data analytics, and blockchain technology in a continuous effort to enhance efficiency and functions of their cyber systems. The funding will also cover cybersecurity. This is to protect government systems from security threats and cyber attacks. The funding is for departments and bureaus to speed up the rollout of projects at $20 million or less each. This is vital for the government's effort to enhance its I&T systems. With members' endorsement for this funding proposal, we will submit the 2025 to 26 estimates of expenditure of all block allocations under the Capital Works Reserve Fund, including Subhead A007GX, to the Public Works Subcommittee. And then afterwards, we will seek funding approval from the Finance Committee. We look forward to member support for this proposal. 6 members are waiting to speak. A reminder to members, if you have any direct or indirect pecuniary interest in this item, please disclose the nature of such interest under Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedure. I also draw members' attention to Rule 84 of the ROP, and that has to do with voting on an item where a direct pecuniary interest is involved. 6 members are waiting to speak. Mr. Chen Kim-po, Mr. Chen Xiu-hong, Mr. Lam Chun-sing, Ms. Eunice Chung, Mr. Dennis Chung, followed by me. 5 minutes for each member. Mr. Chen Kim-po. Thank you, Madam Chair. Now I'm looking at the Annex C. That's the project to be commenced, to be implemented. For 33 projects, they add up to more than $19.5 million. Now, once you hit the $20 million mark, that project will have to go to the Finance Committee separately. No, I see 33 projects at $19.5 million, and they're close to the mark. 4 projects are under the Immigration Department, $19.7, $19.9 million. So, my question is, how does the government assess whether those projects are needed? How do we make sure there's no attempt to split the project so that the projects don't have to go to the FC? How do we make sure those projects make sense? Now, I've seen many mobile apps from the government, but many such apps are underused. Are there plans to remove these apps and put them under I Am Smart instead? Maintenance costs money. How can we ensure cost effectiveness? In 2025 to 26, it's $2 billion, up 18% from the year before. That's $2.52 billion for 2025 to 26, up 18.3% from the $2.13 billion for 2024 to 25. We have to contain the costs. How do we contain the costs? 3 questions. Thank you. I thank the member for his questions. Mr. Chen referred to the 331 new projects. Let's look at those projects. The mark is $20 million. There are 47 projects close to the 20 million mark. That's 14% or so. More than half of the projects are below $10 million. Approval of these projects is not something departments can take for granted. The Digital Policy Office is there as a gatekeeper. We're talking about public money, so we make sure the money will be well spent. For each project, we look at the content, the nature, the category, and the cost effectiveness, and also the implementation details of each project. We also look at whether the project is fit for purpose, and then we also look at the overall expenditure as a whole. We don't just approve any project that comes in. Let's take last year as an example. 3 projects were over $19 million. They were rejected by the Digital Policy Office. The DPO looked at those projects. For 2 projects, hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars were shaven off those projects. So the DPO is there as a gatekeeper. But where a project needs money and it makes sense to do so, we do support those projects. Now, for F, the government has 77 mobile apps. As Mr. Chen noted, we now have I Am Smart. There's a new function. It's a micro app within I Am Smart. It's a centralized platform. This means departments don't have to develop their own app. Of course, it's about the needs of the public. But what we want is to have centralized coordination to support the services of each department. So this is something we will be promoting as a feature on I Am Smart. When departments want to roll out something new, we want them to make use of the I Am Smart platform as their first resort. The DPO also has requirements for mobile apps. If an app fails to meet the requirements, that app will be gone. Now, on why the rising costs. We're asking for increase. They fall into two categories. One, we are upgrading our systems for cybersecurity. We have to keep strengthening our resilience, our defense. That's warranted. The other category has to do with promoting digitalized government services. We're pursuing digital transformation. The digital government services will be the bedrock for such transformation. This is to ensure our service quality and efficiency. Madam Chair, I know the DPO will be the gatekeeper, so I support this funding proposal. Mr. Chen Xiu-hong. Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, we are staring at a huge fiscal deficit. We have to be the gatekeeper here. We have to be rigorous in our role as a gatekeeper. Meanwhile, we want to promote digital government services. We want to provide greater ease for people. We want to show people the benefits of digital government services. That entails updating government systems, and that includes software, so that people get a smooth process as they access public services. So this is a balancing act. We need the DPO to serve as the gatekeeper here. We touched on this point about gatekeeping. The question is how. That's what we are talking about today. Last year, also at this panel, we were looking at the expenditure, the budget for 2024 to 25. Now, we were told there were three criteria in gatekeeping that's absent this year. Last year, the ITIB told us criterion A, the importance of that measure for the government's work. Second, public service. Criterion C, urgency in the provision of public services or internal operations. So this time we're looking at $2.5 billion, up 18.3% from last year. So when the government is approving these projects, how does it weigh those three criteria? Public finances are strained. There may be projects that are not urgent, but conducive to the government's effort to promote digital services. So can we hold off on some project? The Undersecretary made a good point. Some projects got rejected in the end. So we want to see the DPO to act as a gatekeeper. We are giving you $2.5 billion. Let's go ahead with the urgent project. And can we also hold off on non-urgent project? I have a question for Mr. Tony Wong. So are you struggling with anything as a gatekeeper? Do other departments pressure you? Let's go ahead with projects where warranted, but can you tell us about any problem you run into in acting as a gatekeeper?
Commissioner, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chen, for your questions. Let me clarify something. Colleagues from other departments have been looking to serve the public and enhance efficiency. It's not about them shirking their responsibility or trying to spend public money at will. We have indeed set a priority for projects as before. Let me first talk about how the allocation works. There are 2 stages. This is the first stage. Every year, we would have reference to the government resources allocation priority. We have obtained information from other departments to see what they need to take forward in terms of projects. And it's not just the department saying that. They need to go through their policy bureaus, and the policy bureaus would set priorities for the projects. That will give us an overall top-down perspective of bureaus and departments, what upcoming projects are to be taken forward. It's actually more than 300. We have already done some preliminary screening. We have also included ongoing projects. As I said earlier, there would be continuous cash flow requirement for ongoing projects. When they get to different stages of development, cash flow requirements would be different. So for projects approved 1 or 2 years earlier, in this year they may require some more cash flow, and then we would discount such cash flows. It's not that we would have the absolute numbers now. So after discounting, we have the amount of $2.5 billion. It is up 18% from the year before, mainly because of such cash flow requirements. And we also want to introduce some new projects. But it's not the case that the $2.5 billion would be used for all 300 projects, nor the amount they asked for. The office has a professional team in the form of a committee that would look at each and every project. As we gave answers to previous members' questions, when making calculations, we would review their calculations whether they were correct. If there is synergy between various projects, or if it is supposed to come in the form of a major project, we would not allow them to break down such projects. We would ask them to put them in a single project and go through the finance committee if necessary. With reference to the fiscal position, we may have to put on hold some projects that are only to enhance internal efficiency. If they are projects to provide convenience to public, we will, of course, put them at a higher priority. However, if there are projects that are to enhance information security, or there has to be some system upgrades to existing systems, they would also be of higher priority. We also pledged in 2025 we need to make full transition to IM Smart. And we also therefore set a higher priority for projects for departments to migrate their systems onto IM Smart. There may be changes made in the number of projects to be undertaken as well as the amounts. We do have the flexibility that if there are more urgent projects that cannot wait for recurrent funding, we can make exceptional approvals for these projects that were not anticipated. With the approval of electrical members, we can make use of our funding to approve such projects. That's about it. Thank you. Mr. Lam Chen Sing. Every year we have similar discussions on this, and this year the amount is $2.5 billion, up $400 million from before. That is 18%. We are in a tight fiscal position, so we are always looking to save administrative and manpower costs. As some other members said, with some apps, they do not have a high number of downloads. In fact, some only have hundreds of downloads. The Audit Commission actually noted this before. We shouldn't wait for the Audit Commission to call you out on this. The government should monitor the effectiveness of applications and seek to enhance their cost effectiveness. In fact, the Labor Department has made a system for the certification of boilers and pressure vessels. And I think you can have a general system that may be of an amount higher than $20 million that would include different types of licenses. If it is really necessary, we don't mind discussing it at the council. Why break down the systems into something so specific? Are they trying to break down projects deliberately? Would you support them to have a general system that can enhance efficiency even further? Now, on to my next question. The RTIB answered this question at a finance committee meeting. The punctuality of such projects rate is just 75%. It is slightly higher than 70%, but then you have to wait until 29 to 30. If there is any delay, it would be after 2030 with rapid advancement in technology. Once the projects are completed, will they be updated? How can we spur on the developers to make applications faster? If that is not the case, what is the problem here? Thank you. Undersecretary. Thank you, Mr. Lam, for your questions. We may have a dollar amount for the projects right now, but as the Commissioner said, the Digital Policy Office will serve as a gatekeeper, offering macro-level control on the projects. For each project, it would undergo scrutiny. If there are similar projects within the department or in other departments, we will look into whether it is possible to expand the applications of this system that we have at the moment instead of developing a new system. This is the overarching principle. We want to make sure resources are used effectively. The second question of the member is about time. For the 331 new projects, for computerization projects in general, we require the projects to be completed within 2 years, 24 months. But for specific projects, if they are more complex or if they target actual needs, for example, they have to tie in with the schedule of international organizations or requirements in legislation, they may provide the longer term in their project scopes, But then for the 331 projects, 97% of the projects would be completed within 2 years. For individual projects, there would be 8 projects out of these 331 projects that would require to be completed after 2 years. There are various reasons, because there was the tendering exercise, developing, user testing. We would review whether such reasons are justified before we approve the projects. We do value time management for projects. As for the contractor situation, we do note that this may be an issue. The Digital Policy Office has a management guidelines for contractors taking forward projects that would cover the whole life cycle of development. If contractors do not meet the relevant requirements, they will be given warnings. They may have to compensate the government for this. We may even terminate the contract with the contractors. For projects less than $20 million, we also have a specific scheme that already has a list of approved contractors. We may suspend the relevant contractors if they have poor performance. With concerted efforts, we will be able to manage contractors' performance. Commissioner, you have something to add, but due to time constraints, please be brief. Yes, thank you, Chair. I would like to supplement the Undersecretary's answers in response to Mr. Lam's questions. For the first part, whether it is possible to consolidate multiple systems into one system, if we identify such need, we would urge the departments to do that. But sometimes it is specific to the execution of legislation. There may not be synergy in consolidating the systems. It may be the case that they will have to tie in with tendering and legislation. If we have to change that, there may be difficulties. So we have to have reference to the actual circumstances. With reference to what you said about 75% of the projects being completed in time. If we look at something that is happening in the industry, 75% is actually not that low. What is important is that whether the project is delivered to our standards. If they are trying to rush things and cannot meet the relevant standards, there may be even more serious hazards. For example, there may be incidents, there may be security hazards. We have to make sure the systems conform to our requirements and our standards. I hope that the member will understand this. As the Undersecretary said, if the contractors do not, actually, we would ask departments to report the progress of projects to us and contractors' performance. If there is any delay, we may deduct points for the contractors. If it is something that does not happen often, we would try to find out with the contractors what is going on, whether there is force majeure, whether it's something with the contractor or whether there's something with the client. We will also review the seniority of personnel communicating with the contractors. We will perhaps go to someone in a higher position. We also have a punishment mechanism, as the Undersecretary said. If there is often delay with certain projects, we may stop the contractor from winning further tenders. We may even suspend them from their current contracts. Thank you.
I support this proposal. This is for $2.52 billion. Each department will stick to their principles in taking forward these projects to work on areas like interdepartmental collaboration and data sharing. The Undersecretary and also the Commissioner have told us that when departments see a need, they come to the DPO with a proposal for a new project. That's to get the DPO's green light. When you have an interdepartmental proposal, say several departments want a chatbot. I know the DPO is looking at its own chatbot. It's $18 million or so, the most costly of all. I think 1823 needs the most resources. The FSD and the AFCD also need their own chatbots. So will there be a counter proposal? Say someone comes to you with the proposal and then you tell them other departments are working on something similar. Can you develop something that will be shared by multiple departments so that you develop a system and that system can be shared by other departments? So can the DPO counter propose something instead of simply receiving proposals from departments? If you have a handy tool, we should be promoting that among different departments. Take the AFCD. The AFCD, for example, has this animal welfare information system. This is about making use of the government's cloud platform to develop a platform. That's the animal welfare case information system, about sharing information of cases of cruelty to animals. Information on drug trafficking may help more than one department. That can be helpful for our anti-drug efforts. A shared platform of case information may be helpful for not just the AFCD but also for the Department of Justice. Other departments may also benefit. So how does the DPO, or rather, does the DPO counter-propose the sharing of platforms to other departments? Commissioner, please. The simple reply is yes, we do that. So we first find out what departments want to achieve, what sort of update they have in mind, and then we take a holistic view. In some cases, a central platform may help. Chatbots, as Ms. Yong brought up, is an example. We see the need coming from multiple departments, so we come up with a platform. We have this platform for each department to develop their own chatbot faster because we have this shared platform. The same goes for our cloud platform, our big data analytics platform. Once we see an opportunity where several departments are working on something similar, we build a central platform to support those departments. The member referred to cross-departmental project. Cross-departmental ideas need to come from more than one department. So we try to identify possibilities for cross-departmental platforms, and then we invite departments to get involved. We now have the DPO. So now we can take a top-down approach. Departments give support to this approach. Departments may see a need to update their system or share data. So that's the kind of thing where we can consolidate the work. Mr. Dennis Leung. Can we get the sum of the costs from each department in future papers? Can we also get the estimated completion date for each department? we want to get a sense of how long each project will take. I'm looking at item 83 from the CSD. It's about replacing operational gear. It will start in Q3 2026, and then it won't be completed until Q3 2028. Why does it take 3 years to replace operational equipment? Can we get more details? Item 8, it's for country parks. Starting in Q4 2025-26, it won't be completed until Q4 2027-28. Again, it takes 3 years. Technology advances by leaps and bounds. What's causing this problem? It's taking so long. There are 5 principles to stick to for computerization project. Do projects have to meet all these principles, or is it okay for project to meet just some of the principles? Not clear enough for the project here. Now I'm looking at the departmental portals for, say, the CSB and the CAS. The police force will be updating their departmental portal. Also, what work is involved in upgrading those portals? What's wrong with the current portals? I see something about INT risk and audit. That covers the Chief Executive's Office, the C and SD, and also CSD. So why have separate INT risk and audit? Why not have an integrated approach to cybersecurity risks audit? How can the Digital Policy Office enhance cybersecurity? How can we take a holistic approach rather than taking a piecemeal approach, which is the current situation? Now, the budget this year will cover not just the 331 new projects, but the existing project will also be covered. So can we get a sense of the progress of the existing project? How many projects are still ongoing? How is the money spent on the current project? The paper should tell us more about the project. Thank you. Commissioner, on Mr. Leung's questions, it comes down to the project details. I want to stress this. We're asking for members' approval, not for project details. The DPO has yet to conduct an analysis of the project details. The sum, the project duration have yet to be finalized. We have yet to vet individual project. Now, at this stage, we have the requests from departments. We have not yet given the green light to departments. But now we just have this estimate of roughly how much under this head we will need for those projects. We need the basis for this estimate. And then there are projects that have received approval. We have to bear in mind the cash flow requirement of those projects. And that's how we come to this $2.5 billion. So we're not asking for approval for each individual project. We simply want to move faster with project costing no more than $20 million. Once we get the approval for this item, then the DPO can vet each project, so those projects don't have to go to electrical one by one. For each project, there are detailed documents. That's what the block allocation system is supposed to work. We'll try to speed up the delivery of those small and medium projects. Now, on why each department needs its own cybersecurity assessment and audit. That's necessary because our policy is that even for functioning systems, those systems need an assessment every 2 years. So we have this standing agreement for risk assessment services. That's why the systems of some departments fall due for an assessment. And for some departments, several of the systems need a risk assessment. But we will be look at the more than 300 projects to see if each merits our green light and whether we can compress the costs and time for each project. We have a panel that will look at each and every project. Dr. Lo Kwok. Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is about Capital Works Reserve Fund Hat 710 computerization. The funding will go to computerization project. Project at a smaller sum. Altogether, the sum is huge. But this proposal covers the software and hardware of many departments. It's hard for us to say no to this proposal. We believe the government has mechanisms in place for gatekeeping. Every year, when funding under the CWRF comes to LegCo for scrutiny every year, we look at just some project. We don't have to look at every project. We trust the executive. The executive needs some sort of autonomy in what it does. We cannot comment on just every single project out there. We can see many projects set out in the paper. Now, I flipped through the annex. I can see some projects do show that we have to move faster with digital government services. Say, under the housing department, under the buildings department, there's a submission system for submitting documents. This involves mandatory e-submission. This has our support. During the COVID years, Madam Chair, you will recall that we realized work from home was a real challenge because some government departments required paper-based submission in terms of drawings. So now the buildings department will mandate electronic submission of documents. That's a major step forward. So that merits support. Now, under the CEDD, they have a platform for land slips project. Of course, this merits our support. Other projects offer ease to users for submitting information. The Education Bureau has a platform for streamlining the submission of information from private schools to the Education Bureau. Electronic submission is great. The EPD also has a system for the electronic submission of document on noise permit applications. I support the use of electronic platforms to make life easier for people. Getting this right will bring great outcomes for many people. I also see many cybersecurity projects. Those projects matter. Does the government have certain minimum requirements when it comes to upgrading cyber systems? Do we have uniform standards? do we apply the same standards to every department in cybersecurity? What kind of help is available? How do we ensure that each department meets the uniform requirements in cybersecurity? Those are my questions.
Commissioner, thank you, Dr. Low, for your support. Dr. Low is very experienced. You have explained how Capital Works Reserve Fund works. For information systems, every 3 years, we would update our information security guidelines, and every 3 years we will have reference to the latest international standards as well as national policies. And we last updated the guidelines in April. Some systems therefore have to be updated, which is why, with reference to the funding cycle, the departments have proposed updates to their systems. After the guidelines were promulgated or updated, we have communicated with departments to make sure there are standing agreements in place, and the departments are to take forward enhancements and audits. We have also communicated with contractors in these areas on these. Cybersecurity is also an aspect that we consider. It's not the case that a system has to fulfill all of these aspects. We will prioritize our requirements to make sure these changes are cost effective. Thank you. Chair, I support this proposal. Thank you. Mr. Lee Chen-kung. The funding proposal is for $2 billion. We do see a need to update hardware and software to enhance security. I therefore express my support for the proposal. But we are in a tight fiscal position. For many projects, including under the Chief Secretary for Administration's office, there are updates to be made to systems, etc. If we do this, does it help the specific departments to save on manpower so that in future we can save on manpower costs? That's my first question. And then on to my second question. Some members asked if it is possible to have cross-departmental platforms. I think we can really think about this. For example, we have the IM Smart. We have a one-stop portal for government services. We can refer to the experience of the mainland. They make use of the mini programs, and they provide convenience to the public. Even for Hong Kongers going to the mainland, they can make use of some of these programs. So how can you provide actual convenience to the public? On my third question, for example, for Census and Statistics Department, for items 27 and 31, there is the provision of unified communications facilities and Wi-Fi system that costs $12 million alone. Item 31 is about revamping the wide area network that would cost $19.6 million. Why are these so costly? Is it the case that the officers would have to carry their own Wi-Fi devices while working outside, or what is it? Thank you. Undersecretary. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Member, for the questions. On how we review department's resource allocation, that is very important. how can we enhance efficiency and on top of that perhaps save manpower and administrative costs? That is, of course, something that would attract attention. We will review projects based on these considerations. For some departments, they would upgrade automation facilities or just systems in general. The departments are upgrading their hardware, software, their licenses, or enhancing protection for their systems. We believe that would enhance operational efficiency. We have 4 main categories for the projects: digital government services, enhancing operational efficiency, system technology refresh, and IT security. It is not necessarily about saving manpower. With the promotion of digital government services, we want to empower resource allocation of human resources with technology. How can we facilitate both people and businesses by providing better services while releasing manpower for reallocation to take forward other projects or to upskill certain jobs? This is how we are trying to achieve cost effectiveness and efficiency with technology. I can give some examples. For example, in the list of items, for example, civil engineering and development department, we have this blockchain enabled smart contracts. It would save millions in manpower costs. It is because through the operations we can save on manpower. There are also other projects that can save over $1 million in manpower costs. For example, the food and environmental hygiene department that would have a system to issue fixed penalty notices. We do see departments trying to make use of technology to potentially save millions on manpower costs. Another important issue is that with the promotion of smart and digital government initiatives, we have to refer to the experience of the mainland as well as overseas. As long as there are good examples, we would refer to those. For I Am Smart or Corp ID, we are moving towards the direction of having a unified system that would be a single portal providing various services. For the third question, I will let the Commissioner answer this question. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. On what Mr. Lee asked about Wi-Fi, we believe it is because free Wi-Fi will be provided at their premises to citizens coming to their counters. And this is moving towards the direction of providing Wi-Fi for all. I believe hardware and software upgrades are needed as well. As for the wide area network, it would provide connection between the different computers within their departments as well as additional systems. They would have to upgrade their hardware and software. They would also need to enhance system security. The Digital Policy Office has macro supervision of the wider area network control and provides access to the central data server as well as infrastructure. All right, thank you. I'll extend the meeting by 15 minutes, Mr. Chu Ka-fai. On digital government and allocating more resources to projects to save on manpower, I definitely support that. But As said earlier, the amount is up 18% from before. This is alarming. And we have always been hearing about how the government is trying to create or retain positions rather than trimming down on the establishment size. I think the government needs to explain to the public with figures on why they are not trying to trim down on manpower. The amount involved for this proposal is $2.5 billion for the various projects. I want to ask every year for these departments when obtaining funding from the government. So I think there are figures involved for frontline establishment, systems, and whatnot. I want to ask, will the departments be paying for the projects themselves, or is the Digital Policy Office going to pay for everything relating to technology? Thank you, Commissioner. When upgrades are made to systems, it will be included in this block allocation, and these are one-off, and the projects must have a ceiling of $20 million. So if a project would need $10 million to upgrade the systems or develop some systems, if the project is approved, they can make use of such funding, but only for that project. They cannot appropriate that with their departmental funds. All right? So is it the case that because the projects are of smaller scale and the projects are specifically technology related, the Digital Policy Office would handle those? Correct. But under the mechanism, the projects would have a ceiling of $20 million. Are the departments breaking down their projects so that the Digital Policy Office would pay on their behalf? Commissioner. Well, as said earlier, we would review whether the system is necessary for departments' operations. If the system components are related, they cannot break down the projects. This involves professional judgment. If departments are trying to break down the projects, we would play a gatekeeper and reject that. Well, who is going to make that decision? We have a professional committee that is led by our deputy commissioner to see if a project is worthwhile and to review whether there are related projects. Let me give you an example. For example, there is a website that would have a chatbot that would provide answers to the public's questions. How would you decide that there is a need for such? Is one of your considerations how many users there are? Will the department provide estimates for such? If the actual numbers do not meet the estimates, will you do anything about that?
Yeah.
Now, if a feature is already on the central platform, we do not allow a separate project for the department's own system. So say if a department can create something new on the central platform, any project for a separate system, any project for a separate item will be rejected. Now, on I Am Smart, there will be a platform for micro apps. departments should be able to save much on software development costs. The public also don't have to access different apps on different platforms. If departments use this platform for micro apps, departments need to turn to this platform of micro apps as their first resort. If departments do want to set up their own platform, then we will have to talk to them. On usage, departments cannot lie about them. We do annual surveys. If the usage falls below our requirement, that app will be removed. Electrical members also ask questions about the usage. I'm saying I see many projects in the paper. Each department has its own specialized platform systems. I'm just looking at the project. It will take me a while whether each project merits support. I'm thinking your officers have to vet projects from so many departments and bureaus. Of course, we want to see your officers able to do the job. We do support the budget, but the amount involved is up 18%. I think people want to see containment of the costs, so that's something for the department to consider. Mr. Luk Chung-hong. This is for computerization under the Capital Works Reserve Fund. For 2025 to 26, the funding sought will be up 18.3% from 2024 to 25. That's a large sum. So for electrical to endorse this project or this proposal, we will need more details. We will need justifications from the government. As other members have said, we need to see the boost or savings from each project. How much are we saving from each project? We need more details. We're upgrading computer systems. Are they optional? If we go for those projects, will that lead to higher costs? In some cases, repairing or fixing old systems may cost more than getting a new system. On those points, we need more details. Joining us today, we have people from the ITIB and the Digital Policy Office. Can we have a more holistic attempt at coordination and consolidation? Say I see many departments are working on chatbots and automation of office systems. So can we take a standardized approach? Can we have a centralized approach to tendering? You may get a lower return price. Splitting projects will deprive you of the economies of scale. You end up with a larger price tag. Now, I'm looking at some individual project. Say the CAS, Civil Aid Service, upgrading their departmental portal. It's a small amount. The departmental website is very simple. It's very straightforward. And you're asking for $2.5 million. $2.5 million isn't a lot. But the website is very simple. I don't think many people visit the website of the CAS. So can we invite tenders for several websites in one go in a single tender? Now, the HAD also has a project on a platform for the hiring of community halls. I support that. We had to fill out form after form for community halls, and then we had to go through a lucky draw. It was a lot of paperwork. Now there's an online system. That's great. My question is, do we have a timetable when we phase out the paper-based forms? Otherwise, you spend $20 million on an electronic system, and then some people stick to paper-based forms. So you will have an absurd situation. You have an electronic system while people are still giving you paper-based forms. We need more details to justify these expenses. Undersecretary. Thank you. I thank Mr. Lok for his questions. Mr. Lok asked about the increase by 18.3%. That's the cash flow requirement. We have 1,125 new projects. 80% of such projects are ongoing or are due to start soon. These projects have reached an advanced stage. We want these projects to wrap up within 2 years. At the more advanced stage, projects will need more cash flow. That's why we need this amount of money, because 80% of the 1,125 projects have reached an advanced stage. Now, for the 331 new projects, they make up 20% of the project. Not all these projects will get the DPO's green light. We look at each and every project in great detail. We have a steering committee that will examine each project in detail in terms of necessity, urgency, and priority, as well as the nature of each project. So the committee will look at the social benefits of each project and whether a project fosters cross-departmental collaboration, cost-effectiveness, technical substance. We look at all these factors. We have to be mindful of how we use resources. We want to make sure resources are put to good use. Where a cost reduction is possible, we do run a tight ship. In 2023, the DPO looked at 195 projects. For 30% of such projects, the costs were lowered. 13 projects were rejected. So we will get the gatekeeping and coordination right. Now, on timely delivery, on whether we can phase out paper-based forms when we're taking forward an electronic system, we will have to talk to each department whether they have such a timetable. It depends on whether all users of a system or a scheme have access to computer systems. We have to talk to each department about that. If members have no objection, I will extend the meeting further by another 15 minutes. Thank you, Madam Chair. I get an impression when we had much surplus, I used to be easygoing, but now we get $100 billion in fiscal deficit. It's easier to spend the money than to raise the money. And people tend to care less when you're spending someone else's money. That's public money. I see 331 new projects. Now for 2025 and 26, the money will go up. A new project 2030 to 331. 794 projects are ongoing, altogether 1,125 projects. The money going up from $2.1 billion to $2.5 billion. Now we have projects on hardware and software. Implementation of services, $3.42 billion. That covers wages. We also have contract staff, 51%, and then contingency fees, other fees, 10% buffer. That approach doesn't work anymore. You shouldn't need that much money for contingency. If you're out of money, you come back to LegCo. It's so wrong to ask for 10% contingency fees. It's reckless spending. We have a job to do. It's okay when you are swimming in cash, but you're asking for $2 billion every year. This item comes to us for approval every year. Computers are supposed to last longer. I'm still sticking to my iPhone 12. It's 5, 6 years. I use my phone a lot. Computers are supposed to last longer. So, my ideas are as follows. In the coming budget, first, we need to freeze the pay. And second, we need to scale down the civil service down 2%. Look at Elon Musk. They're trying to trim 2 trillion US dollars. The US GDP is only 27 trillion US dollars, and Elon Musk is looking to trim 2 trillion US dollars from their government budget. Now, back to us. $700 billion. Civil service pays roughly $15 billion. If we apply the same 2% target to us, we should be firing a lot of people. That's Elon Musk. Nobody chews him out because he's Elon Musk. So the government should scale back its civil service by 2%, and then we should freeze the civil service pay. And we should make an example. Everyone is asking for money. Is the $2 billion here necessary? Some projects are already going on. If we reject this extra $400 million, will the end of the world come? The government is not saving money, and instead it's spending more money. I'm not happy. I can take a 20% pay cut myself, but can the government do it? I don't support this proposal. The government has failed to make a convincing case. I see no urgency, no necessity. It's a $100 billion deficit. Last year, we had another $100 billion deficit. You should achieve savings wherever you can, Undersecretary. Now, I want to invite the Commissioner to tell us more about the contingency fees. I fully agree with Dr. Ho on the point that if departments fail to meet the requirement about cost effectiveness, we will not support such project. Now, on the 10% contingency fees, we are of one mind with Dr. Ho. So for new project, we have made a pledge not to grant the contingency fees on the merits of each project. Computerization has been around for many years. So for every 5 or 7 years, plans need to be made about replacing systems. Before we hit the 5 or 7 year mark or the lifespan, we will not allow departments to replace their systems. It takes time to upgrade the system. The proposal may come in year 5. By the time replacement happens, it may be 7 years. To maintain operational efficiency and cybersecurity, some systems do need to be updated regularly. Madam Chair, just one comment. I support spending where warranted. Still, we have to be mindful of our budget. And the government must make a convincing case of the urgency of the project. I fail to see such urgency in the paper. I only see reckless spending.
Alright, I'll let members speak for the second round before I speak. I will assign a 3-minute time limit because we do not have much time left, Mr. Chan Su-hong. Well, let me say this. I do want to say something. While we do face a tight fiscal position and many members have expressed concern, we do see many projects, especially IT-related projects, that would provide convenience to the public. With these digital government initiatives, we should still support such. If we have projects, hundreds of projects ranging from $100,000 to $20 million. If we are to examine the project one by one, it can be very cumbersome. I think taking the block allocation approach is appropriate, but the Digital Policy Office must play a good gatekeeper to make sure the projects are indeed cost effective and achieve the intended purpose. I think many members said some really good points. When it comes to vetting the projects, a member actually asked whether the DPO has faced difficulty in rejecting the applications. The DPO clarified that there was no pressure involved, and some members actually raised some examples for some websites and whatnot. If the projects are not warranted, they are rejected. And I appreciate that. I also want to ask this, just to get a confirmation from the government, that for 15 departments that will have IT projects, that will be about taking projects in 2025-26, they will cost approximately $190 million. Some are of upgrading email systems. And from what I know, in 2018 Q4 to 2019 Q2, they are taking forward such projects already. Why are there still 15 departments that are still undertaking such projects that are to be completed, I expect, in 2026-27 to 27-28? Can the Undersecretary explain this? My concern is email systems have a 5 to 7 year life cycle. If we only take forward these systems 10 years after it is decided to take that direction, would the technology be outdated? Thank you. Undersecretary, I will answer the first part of the question, and then the Commissioner will answer the second part. As many other members, including Mr. Chen, expressed concern about the government's tight fiscal position, as well as the DPO's gatekeeper role, we stress that the DPO plays an important role in promoting digital government development. Let me stress this, however, for the $2.5 billion, most of it is for enhancing information security. It is a must to upgrade our security system in response to rising threats. This has to be spent in order to make sure we can tackle the threats. It would also include some projects that would enhance operational efficiency. We are to take forward digital transformation of government systems and infrastructure. We have received much advice from members that we should refer to the example of the mainland. But you have to understand, without resources investment, there is no way we can take such projects forward. And these projects would cover projects of 80 odd departments and bureaus. And these projects would act as foundations for taking forward digital government initiatives. But let me assure you, the DPO will play a gatekeeper role. We do have some guiding principles. So we do have a list of projects here, but these projects will be scrutinized one by one. We would also review the relevant budgets. If we decide to reject certain projects, so be it. And we have always been trying to undertake reforms as the country is doing. But we also need to take forward digital government initiatives and enhance our INT standards, otherwise we'll be left behind. I'll let the Commissioner answer the second part of the question. I'll be brief. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chen, for your question. In 2017, we have proposed the $25 million project to help bureaus and departments, approximately 26 of them, to upgrade their email systems into new ones. So that would involve approximately 18,000 people. That was completed in 2021. The procedure is a bit more complex, so it cannot be undertaken simultaneously. There was some coordination involved. We do not want to only tackle the email systems in one go, because there are the second and third batches that would involve approximately 180,000 officers. We need to take things step by step. If the email systems are not supposed to be upgraded in its life cycle, it would just be a waste of public money to upgrade them earlier. So it may seem like a long cycle, but we are just taking things step by step so as not to affect the daily operations of bureaus and departments. This is also relevant in terms of the allocation of resources. When procuring the systems, we would have reference to the latest systems available, so we wouldn't be using outdated systems. Thank you. All right, it's now my turn to speak. I will extend the meeting by another 10 minutes. Some members said that this proposal was unnecessary. I disagree. It is a fact that we are trying to develop smart city and smart government in Hong Kong. We are also trying to promote the development of digital economy in Hong Kong. We really have to expedite the pace of the government making good use of information technology to upgrade and transform various government operations. We have to seek change, otherwise we will be left behind. As many members asked, I would like to ask the same question. Why are some projects taking so long to complete? I see many projects are upgrades And I think these are necessary because otherwise it may affect departments' operations. Many members have been calling for the departments to undertake these projects, so I think taking forward these projects are necessary. It's necessary. But we have to admit that the government is in a tight fiscal position. I urge the DPO to serve as a gatekeeper to ensure public money is made to good use. This is the overarching principle. The government must make good use of technologies in future, and we have been talking about making use of AI, blockchain, and some shared systems, for example, like in low altitude economy applications. Perhaps more government departments can make use of drone systems for urban management and perhaps inspections. I think we shouldn't take a fragmented approach with applications of technology in government departments. We need to work together. And the commissioner actually said for the different departments, they are to propose the projects involved. I think it would be a better approach that the commissioner gauges the needs with reference to the operations of departments and set the relevant priority. Otherwise, if the departments are left to their own devices, it is actually not very cost effective. We should encourage departments to use new technologies. I think some member suggestions are worth considering. The list has many different items in the paper, the list in the paper. If we are to look at the projects one by one, it can be cumbersome, but then perhaps the commissioner can provide some additional analyses, say for a particular department, how much manpower can be saved with these projects, or how much time can be saved, how much money can be saved in the long term to provide better services to the public. If, in addition to the list of items, you can provide a summary, some simple analyses how these projects would benefit the public, it would really facilitate the public's understanding why these projects are necessary. Because otherwise, with the names, the public wouldn't know much about what is to be done. I hope the government in future can consider taking this approach. In future, we want to have the DPO to serve as a gatekeeper and ensure that projects are completed in the most efficient manner with the least amount of resources and in a reasonable time frame. Thank you. Undersecretary. Thank you, Chair. Chair, you have summed up very succinctly our principles. In response to what you said, Chair, how we can provide macro level coordination. The Digital Policy Office provides effective coordination. We do not only review the new projects submitted by the departments, we have been looking as a whole how the government can take forward digital government initiatives, what new technologies should be used, what are the deficiencies of certain departments. We have been asking ourselves that as well. In the policy address, we have been talking about taking forward smart government initiatives. We also have been talking about the 8 initiatives to take forward smart city and smart government development. These were proposed by the Digital Policy Office because we have a more macro perspective on what the government needs in terms of technological solutions. So we are not taking a fragmented approach. We are taking a macro perspective.
Madam Chair, you also raised the point about platforms that can be shared by departments. This is also our guiding principle. The DPO has been encouraging the use of centrally managed platforms such as the government cloud, big data analytics platform, and also AI-enabled platforms, and also the consented data exchange gateway. The big data analytics platform now supports more than 20 big data projects from departments. Now, for the AI-enabled service, the chatbot module supports 10 chatbots from departments. We also encourage and help with such projects, especially those about blockchain. Madam Chair, you mentioned moving faster and being stricter with gatekeeping. These are also the principles we follow. And maybe I can invite the Commissioner to tell us more. Madam Chair, you made a great point. We will actively consider what you have said. We will think about how we can set out the details about project progress and benefits in future papers. Giving too many details about project to be approved may make the information harder to digest for electoral members. We will find a new way to present the information in this paper. Mr. Chen Hong, have you pressed the button again? Can you just be brief? Madam Chair, I support what you have said. Most members support this proposal. But the devil is in the details. We should not spending electoral time on each project. So we will need the DPO to act as the gatekeeper. People can see the amount, $2 billion. It has been such the case over the years. It's more than $10 billion in total over the years. We need a clear account of the expenditure. So when this project reaches the Public Works Subcommittee, can we have more details? We take forward digital services. We should be saving manpower. You should be able to quantify the savings. I'm not asking you to ask people. I'm saying there are new requirements. You will need new manpower. But going electronic and launching digital services can help you save manpower so that the officers can be redeployed to new services. You should be able to quantify that information. Of course, this process will take a while, more than a year or two, but you should spell that out in your papers. When people see this list, they may be wondering, 311, 312, 315, they have to do with the Transport Department. Last June, the Finance Committee approved a project about the 6th generation licensing system, $310 million. It's about going electronic with the licensing portal. But here, In 2025 and 26, yet more requests for funding, migration of permit application system to government cloud infrastructure services and system upgrade of e-services for permit application system, $10 million. Upgrading of the vehicle registration mark system, $12.4 million. Revamp of e-services and upgrade of permit processing system for closed road permit for cross-boundary vehicles, $19.9 million. The impression, as the commissioner suggests, is that we only see the names on this list. If we approve this proposal on the nod, we may have to explain to people how things work. The names are very similar. They are all about going electronic. It's okay if you don't have the details today, but before the paper reaches the PWSC, we expect more details. So can we get more details before the proposal reaches the PWSC? Commissioner. Thank you, Madam Chair. We can offer an analysis based on departmental feedback. We can get some details about how much manpower we are saving, and we can include the details in the paper that will go to the PWSC. I have a suggestion. We're setting out the new project. They have yet to be approved by us. We're simply consolidating the requests from departments. So we have to think about how we can present the information in a way that's easy to digest, in a way that is not confusing to members. We will think about this after this meeting. Mr. Chan's point is that we only see the project names here. Not everyone can make sense of all these project names. And we're hoping that the paper can set out the project goals from each department so that we can tell whether these projects are merited, and then we can tell people why this project need to go ahead. We will work at pace. We can provide an overall summary to give members an idea so that members get a sense of how we enhance efficiency, how we can save costs and maybe administration. We're grateful to members for their suggestions. The member also made a point about another matter. Those were systems for other purposes. The member referred to the 6th generation licensing system. The 6th generation system is a separate matter, distinct from what the member referred to on the list. We can give you more details. Our overarching principle is no overlapping of project, and also no splitting of project in submission. When a project needs to come to LegCo, we submit that project to LegCo. Members have a right to scrutinize the project. We also look at the necessity, urgency, and cost effectiveness of project when we decide whether to greenlight a project. We thank members for the valuable point they raised so that we can do a better job in driving Hong Kong to be a smart city and our smart government efforts. Most members spoke in favor of submitting this proposal to the Public Works Subcommittee for further consideration. Item 3, any other business. This meeting is the last regular meeting of this legislative session. Here I want to thank members for their support for this panel. I also thank government officials for attending our meetings, and I thank the Secretariat for its work. Meetings adjourned.